Zohran Mamdani's administration gave press credentials to 3 women this week who used their relatively official status to stand out in front of the courthouse where Luigi Mangione is being tried and defend the murder of Brian Thompson. The 3 women, suffering from some sort of hysteria that would have got them burned at the stake had they lived in Salem, were frothing at the mouth while insisting that assassinations are okay as long as the left doesn't like the victim. See, on the loony left, words can be violence. Misgendering someone needs to be policed at all costs. But actual violence, well, that's only bad when the victims happen to be them. The difference between the right and the left is simple. People on the right tend to think that people on the left are wrong in their politics, and people on the left tend to think it's okay to kill those people on the right. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome in. I have 2 topics that we're going to get into today. We're going to be talking about Thomas Massie's primary defeat, and we're going to be talking about those insufferable harpies that I mentioned in the intro. The mistake of giving them a press pass cannot be overstated. We're going to get into that, but before we get into either topic, let's do our favorite comment from last week. Favorite comment, oh my gosh, why did I not make this bigger? Favorite comment comes from Joe Mancuso, who said, quote, "Her IQ is lower than her age," end quote. That is, of course, referring to AOC, who we talked about last week on the podcast. Now, I want you to know, listeners out there, this is very important. Sorry, Winnie, elbowed her. It's very important. Joe, don't be rude, okay? You come on here, you want to make fun of AOC. It's not okay, all right? I need you to be accurate in what you're saying here. Her IQ is at least comparable to her age, right? It's not lower. I'm sure that she has at least 35 points in the IQ charts. My gosh, this cat is already bothering me. We're 10 seconds in, people, and the cat's already being obnoxious. But anyway, thank you, Joe. Appreciate the comment. That was crazy. The amount of, when you mention AOC, you get some traction. It's kind of like mentioning Donald Trump in a video. When you mention Donald Trump, the algorithm tends to just take off, and the videos tend to do a lot more views. It's kind of the opposite effect with AOC, where I mention AOC, the views also go up and up and up. But man, the amount of hate in the comments is also exponential. AOC's got some defenders out there. She is a dangerous opponent, people. Mark my words here. She is formidable. She's a complete moron. But people like her. They don't know that. Just don't recognize it. So anyway, we got to keep our eye out for her. Anyway, that's not even a topic for this week. Let's get into topic 1. Thomas Massie is out. Thomas Massie, I'm sure if you're in politics or you follow politics, he's one of the more known, I would say, on the Republican side, House members. Now, obviously, we have 435 members of Congress. You're not going to know everybody. You're just not. There are some people who are more prominent, some people who are less. There's a reason why you know AOC, because she just represents some district in the House out of New York, but you don't know some random senator from Kansas. Or excuse me, House member from Kansas. There's a reason why. Some of them just have a profile and some of them don't. Thomas Massie was a pretty big guy in the Republican side of things. Not necessarily because he was a great Republican, but just because he gets his name out there. He is a kind of a thorn in the side for the administration. But Thomas Massie, he has been a representative in the House from Kentucky since 2012. So he's been in there 15 years now, 14 years. Well, in his primary, this election cycle, he lost this week. He lost to a guy named Ed Gallarain. Gallarain, I think is how he pronounces it. And it wasn't just a small win. It was a big victory in terms of political wins. So he got 55% of the vote to Thomas Massie's 44% of the vote, which, again, is a big swing in an election. Most elections, when we look at presidential elections, they're often 51 to 49% in the popular vote, and obviously the Electoral College is what matters. But a 10-point difference in an election is a big swing. So this race actually wound up being, it's the most expensive House race in history. Over $30 million were spent on advertising alone. Very expensive. Why do we care? Why do we care that Thomas Massie is out of Congress, and why do we care that it was expensive? Well, we care for a number of reasons. The Republican majority in Congress is very narrow and extremely narrow. So Thomas Massie has been a problem for the Republican Party. Of course, he wants to come out and blame it on Israel. That's been the whole thing, because there was a bunch of spending from a pro-Jewish lobbying groups like AIPAC that were putting a lot of money into this race, because Thomas Massie has been on the Jews are bad train for a while. I won't just say he's an anti-Semite, but he's definitely not supportive of Israel or their war in the Middle East or the war against Iran. And you can conflate these things, and people often do. You want to conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. I'm not going to say Thomas Massie's an anti-Semite, though he said some things that I think are less than ideal. I wouldn't say he's an anti-Semite, but he's a big critic, or he has been, of Israel, their actions both in Gaza and now in Iran, and our support for them, and a bunch of things. So there is a motivation by pro-Israel forces that want him out of there. So AIPAC put a lot of money in this. So of course, Thomas Massie turns around and he blames it on the Jews. He said, hey, the Jews are the reason I'm not in Congress anymore. You know, those sneaky Jews and their Jew money, they got me out of Congress. He didn't say all that, but you kind of get the tinge of that. It's kind of like he is implying that, you know, he would still be in Congress if it wasn't for the Jewish push to oust him from his seat. And you get this in his concession speech. I want to just play you. Look at this little clip. This is just kind of obnoxious. There's no reason for this. This is Thomas Massie at his concession speech. This is how he opened it up.
All right. Listen, I would have come out sooner, but I had to call my opponent and concede, and it took a while to find Ed Galrine in Tel Aviv.
Ed Galrine in Tel Aviv. Oh, how funny. So he blames it on Israel, and it has a little bit of a tinge of that sort of anti-Semitism to it that I don't necessarily care for. It can be like this with a lot of groups. You would never say this about another group. I think that the Jewish people have a unique circumstance. They're one of the only places in the world with their own religion. So what I mean by that is it's a unique country because it is a uniquely Jewish state. There's not another one that exists. It's kind of the way that India is the only Hindu nation. They're kind of the only countries with their own distinct religion happen to be Israel and India, where they're majority, they're giant religions, kind of, not in the case of Judaism, but a major religion that has its own state. They're the only two with basically their unique states. There's a lot of Muslim states, there's a lot of Christian states, but there's not a lot. There's one Jewish state and one Hindu state, but we're talking about Israel. Israel gets some outsized hate for their size and the amount of Jews there are on the planet. I believe there's something like 12 million Jews on the whole planet, so it's not a lot of Jewish people in the planet. And to blame his loss on Israel just really undercuts it, and it does this weird thing in politics where we pretend that the Jewish people, because of their success, because of their money they put in politics, that they have some outsized influence on our politics. It's the silliest thing in the world. I want to talk about this because he blamed AIPAC, and he blamed the spending on AIPAC, and he blamed all this, the quote-unquote Jewish money that's coming in. So to me, again, ridiculous. And we know it's ridiculous because of this. I want you to take a look at something. Take a look at a couple different things. So when we talk about AIPAC, we're not talking about a foreign organization. It's one of the criticisms of AIPAC. It's actually American Jews who fund this thing. And so it's not foreign money, it's American money. So we're not really talking about that when I talk about what I'm about to show you. But I want to just talk about the amount of lobbying that goes on from foreign governments. Okay, take a look at this. Take a look at this chart. These are the countries with the most political activities under FARA. So this is the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So if you are lobbying on behalf of a foreign government, you have to be registered to FARA. Now again, cards on the table. AIPAC doesn't have to do this because it's not a foreign organization. But I want you to look at the countries with the most political agents, basically. Saudi Arabia, 14,000. Ukraine, 13,000. Congo, 8,000, which is kind of a weird one. I wouldn't have expected that. But the UAE, 7,000. Goes down. 6 to Azerbaijan, Iraq, Belgium, the Dominican Republic, Bahrain, South Korea, Turkey, blah, 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 blah. Israel doesn't make this list. Okay? Now, let's just say that's because AIPAC, which is the largest portion of Israel, doesn't register. It wouldn't touch any of these countries. None of them. It wouldn't touch Saudi Arabia or Ukraine or the UAE. They're lobbying every single day. Qatar, the amount of money that Qatar has put into United States politics, lobbying on behalf of them. Do we remember when, is it a coincidence that Tucker Carlson thinks that Qatar is a wonderful place to live? No, it's because he's being paid by the government. Like, let's be real about this. Or how about we take a look at this chart? The amount of spending by countries. This is open secrets. They track lobbying money by country. So what do we see here? China, $500 million. This is in since 2016. So this is the last 10 years. Japan, $500 million. Liberia, $400 million. Saudi Arabia, $400 million. South Korea, $300 million. The United Arab Emirates, $270 million. Qatar, $270 million. Israel, down here, $215. So it's in the top 10, but it's at the bottom of the list. We pretend, or people, I don't, but people pretend that Israel has some outsized influence on United States politics because they put money in there, because AIPAC is spending money in U.S. elections. Guys, all of these countries are lobbying constantly to the U.S. government for favorable treatment to their countries. That's what they're doing. That's what every country in the world is doing right now in the U.S. They all have lobbyists that are lobbying for them, okay? So let's not pretend that Thomas Massie lost because the Jews put money into his race. Yes, he didn't promote Israel, and so some some pro-Jewish groups put money against him. That's the way everything works in the country. The Jews are doing that for the Jewish state. But if he imagined for a second that he came out and he said he's anti-gun now. He wants to take everyone's weapons. Do we think the NRA wouldn't have put money into the race against him? That if you're Thomas Massie is anti-Israel, or he's anti what Israel action in the Middle East, whatever the case, whatever he would describe himself as. If you're a pro-Israel or a pro-Jewish group, of course you're going to run against him. It's not the Jews who are doing it just because you're that. By the way, it's the same argument on the other side. Well, these guys, Ted Cruz is only pro-Israel because he's taken that AIPAC money. No, dum-dums. Let me spoon feed you this. This is the opposite of the way it works. AIPAC doesn't give money to someone and then they become pro-Jewish state. They find someone who is pro-Jewish state and they give money to that person so they support them even more because they want that person to do well, because they want that person to win elections, because that person happens to be somebody who already supports their idea. They want them to win so then they have that voice. Maybe there are people out there who are taking a bunch of money and then they go and spout talking points. I doubt a lot of people really think Qatar is a great place. But a guy like Ted Cruz, he's not pro-Israel because he's taking AIPAC money. AIPAC is giving him money because he's pro-Israel. It's the opposite of the effect. I'm pro-Israel. I think anyone who watches this show understands. I am pro-Israel. I support them even through their actions in Gaza. I support the war in Iran. I support the fact that we give them money and help them fund their defense. All this stuff, okay? I'm about as pro-Israel as it gets. I've never seen a dime of AIPAC money. If AIPAC wants to come and give me some money, I'm open to it. All right, you feel free. I'll take money. I'll take the money. I'm not going to say no to the money. But it's not going to change my opinion. It'd be like a group I don't know, pick a country. If a Chinese group comes to me and they say, hey, we want to give you a bunch of money, I'd be like, okay. And then I'd come out here and I'd still be anti-China. Like I'm not... That's not anti. Again, we got to make some clarifications. Not anti-Chinese people, but do I think we should accept a bunch of Chinese students into America? No, I don't. They have stolen our intellectual property. They funnel it back. They're spies embedded all throughout. They're trying to compromise politicians in the U.S. They are playing a different game. Do I think that we should allow citizenship, the birth tourism from Chinese citizens? No, I don't think that at all. But if a Chinese group comes and gives me a bunch of money, am I going to flip my principles and start all of a sudden saying, yeah, I'm pro-China? No, I'm not. Most people would not do that. Even most politicians. And we know politicians can be scummy and we know that they can be that some of them can be bought and they're corrupt people. But I really don't think that people are out there just compromising their beliefs because they get paid money. I wouldn't. I know a lot of people wouldn't. But it's not even true. It's the opposite of the way that it normally occurs, and people are just silly. So let's take this out of it for just a second. Let's take the Jewish voice out of this for a second. Why did Thomas Massie lose? It's not just because the Jews put a bunch of money into the race. Yes, it was an expensive race. Yes, that didn't help him. Thomas Massie lost because he broke with Trump, because he's not a reliable Republican vote in Congress. I mentioned they have an incredibly narrow majority. Thomas Massie may as well have been a Democrat. And you're going to say, well, that's crazy. He voted with the Republicans a lot. Yes, he used to vote with the Republicans 91% of the time. You'll see in this clip I'm going to play of him. He'll talk about that. I vote with the Donald Trump's agenda 91% of the time. Well, anyway, I think during this term it's been 70%. But taking that out of the equation, even that, it's like when Joe Manchin. Does everyone remember Joe Manchin? I think he was from Montana. I want to say Montana. Joe Manchin, he was a Democrat. But sometimes he voted with the Republicans. And people say, wow, look at this guy. He's really in the middle. No. It's like Thomas Massie. It's easy to vote with your party most of the time. It is the time when it's not easy that matters. And what happens is, when it mattered, Massie votes with the Democrats. Okay, well, then you're not a Republican. Because I understand that you want to be principled. Principle, all the way to defeat. You want to walk down and hold your chest high and say, well, I'm so principled, I'm not going to vote with these Republicans. I share a lot of Thomas Massie's concerns, the libertarian leanings and the beliefs. I think the government spends too much money. I'd like to cut the amount that the government spends by a lot. And so I am all about protecting the individual, all these libertarian ideals. The problem is, politics is not a game where you can get it perfect. It's often a game where you have to make concessions. So when you want to stand on principle and tank the Republicans, well, what are you doing? You're letting the Democrats win. It is a zero-sum game. So I understand you want to carve out concessions for me, and I want to make everything better because I'm so much better than everybody else. Look at all these people compromising their principles and their morals to get the actual work of governance done. No, Thomas Massie is a no vote in the Republican Party. He won't pass Donald Trump's agenda. He attacked Republicans. Here's the clip I wanted to show of him. So why would the Republican Party want this guy in here? Listen to how he talks about Republicans.
Well, look, I vote with the president 91% of the time. The 9% of the time my party is taken up for pedophiles, bankrupting this country, or starting another war, I don't vote with him. And they want 100% compliance. That's why.
So Thomas Massie, I vote with the Republicans, except when they defend pedophiles and bankrupt the country and start wars. Okay, so that's how you talk about the Republican Party. Why should the Republican Party have anything to do with you? Get rid of him. I'm sure he might be a nice guy. I don't know. Maybe not. But he doesn't need to be in the Republican Party. He doesn't need to be a Republican in Congress when we have a narrow majority to work with and we're trying to pass legislation. If he's not going to pass Trump's budget, what good is he to the Republican Party? Get him out of there. Yes, we want people who mostly vote. It's okay to not vote if your principles or your morals demand it. I understand. You shouldn't just be a party line 100% of the time. I get it. But when it matters, you have to be counted on to be a reliable vote for the Republicans, and he's not. And Donald Trump got sick of it. Thomas Massie, by the way, he was running ads saying, I'm so pro-Trump and Donald Trump loves me and blah, blah, blah. That's great. And then Donald Trump was going, no, I don't endorse him. He sucks. I don't want anything to do with him. He's being dishonest. He doesn't have my endorsement. And it's kind of embarrassing. And he got shellacked because of it. But it's not the Jewish vote that did it. It's the entire thing. Republicans are sick of losing. That's what it is. Republicans don't want to lose. And if you side with the Democrats when it counts, what good are you? You're no good. So get out of there. So it's different. What this showed about this election, a lot of people are taking the wrong lesson from it because a lot of people are mistaken in thinking that it showed that, well, you really can't go against Israel because they're going to get you. They're going to get, with the Jewish space lasers, they're going to get you. No, that's not what it says. It has nothing to do with that. Again, well, not nothing. It has a little bit to do with that. But that's not why. what this just showed is that Donald Trump has a stranglehold on the Republican Party. He will make or break you. And that's what matters in the Republican Party right now. It is what Donald Trump says goes. So when you want to sit there and you want to play your principled game of politics and hold your head high and think you're better than everyone, loftier than everyone, not vote for pass the budget, not vote to put his judges in place, not when you want to vote against Donald Trump, he's going to smash you. And I think that people need to start learning. There were 5 senators in Indiana, state senators in Indiana, who just lost their primaries because they didn't want to redistrict. And Bill Cassidy just got voted out. He was the guy who voted to impeach Trump. He lost. You got John Cornyn in Texas. He lost Trump's endorsement, and basically that has given the race over to Ken Paxton, who got Trump's endorsement. If you don't go with what Donald Trump says, Donald Trump wanted the redistricting in Indiana. Okay, they didn't want to go along with it, fine. The voters showed them where they're at. The Republican voters are with Donald Trump. That's what it is. Donald Trump runs the Republican Party. If you want to go against him, you are signing your own death certificate in this party. And that's what Thomas Massie did. He basically went against Donald Trump, and he might as well have resigned right there. You do not get to say, well, Donald Trump is out there defending pedophiles. Okay, first of all, you're wrong, and I'm so sick of hearing about the Epstein files. It's such a stupid topic at this point. But secondly, you're saying Donald Trump is defending pedophiles. That's crazy. I'm gonna sneeze. So this basically, if we didn't already know it, Donald Trump is the kingmaker, and that's what this proved. It had nothing, again, not nothing, a little bit. It had a little bit to do with the Jewish voices and the Jewish lobby, but it just showed that Donald Trump runs the Republican Party, and you need to respect that. Anyway, let's get into topic number 2, the New York press. This week, Zohar Mamdani, his office, his administration, gave press credentials to 3 women who are just terrible, god-awful human beings. Now, I know what you're saying. We're talking about the press. Isn't that par for the course? And I hear you. I do. I understand. But these ones are worse. They're worse than normal, and I'm going to show you how. We're going to show a clip. I'm going to talk about the clip because it just infuriates me. Whoa. Rewind. Okay. Listen to these 3 terrible human beings.
His children are better off without him. They need to learn to not be like their dad and enjoy the blood money.
What was that? I didn't get that, what he said. I'm standing on this fuck Brian Thompson. I don't give a flying fuck Brian. Millions of Americans.
I liked it.
Millions of Americans suffer every single day from lack of mental health and healthcare. We had an individual infant we did, Stella, who, because of how negligent her health insurance was, she died. An infant died. So if you guys are okay with someone like Brian Thompson being around and not being a part of our society, that's more about who this person is absolutely monstrous, defending someone like that. It's a social murder. That's what mass social murder.
He's responsible for more deaths than Osama bin Laden. And I remember Americans celebrating when Osama bin Laden was killed. It's not like we don't understand heroic violence or like.
I'm going to pause this right here. It's important to note, I guarantee this lady cuts her own bangs. Look, she looks like a crazy person. If you saw this person walking down the street, you'd be like, oh, I got to cross the street. Anyway, let's finish this clip out.
When violence is good, that's like, as American guys.
I mean, why do we protect the Second Amendment so much? Is it to allow people to shoot up schools, or is it to protect our democracy?
I think it's to protect our democracy.
I'm not saying, we should all take up arms, but when your democracy is eroded and there's no other option, what are we meant to do?
Okay, so just terrible, god-awful human beings. So the background of this is that you have Luigi Mangione, who I'm sure we remember, is the assassin, terrible, god-awful human being who walked up on the street and shot Brian Thompson to death. Brian Thompson, was it United? Is he the United Healthcare CEO? He's the CEO of a health insurance company. I think it was United, but I'm actually not 100% on that. Walked up and killed him because he thinks that health insurance is bad, that these guys are making money off of the immiseration of people, And so he murdered him. Well, these three women are out there at the courthouse. They got their press credentials, so they're able to get there to the courthouse. And they stand there, and they basically say, yeah, fuck Brian Thompson. Glad he's dead. His children are better off. Enjoy the blood money, but you're better off without your father. I try not to on the show. I really do. In life, I try to. I'm not always great at it. But on the show, I try not to just sit here and absolutely hate people. Like, you know what? I hate people. You don't want to. I hate these women. I hate them. They're all three. Not just because they're stupid, but because they're evil. They are stupid and evil. And that is a terrible combination to be. That's how the majority of terrible things have happened throughout history, is you get a great combination of stupid and evil that do terrible things. These people, now Mamdani, just real quick, Mamdani's office did come out and say they shouldn't have given press credentials to these people. They're reviewing the process. So he said all the things. But I want to know why he even bothered. He agrees with these women. He won't say it, but he does. This is what the socialists believe. This is where this comes from. They talk about, I've heard this term a lot recently, and the fact that we're talking about this term infuriates me, makes me so angry. You've heard this idea, this social murder, this term social murder. So this term, it may predate Engels, but I know he wrote about it. I've read what he wrote about this term. And it's important to note that the Communist Manifesto was written by Marx and Engels. And Marx was a loser, an absolute loser in life. And I'm using that term just as accurately as possible. This was a guy who was poor. He was living off other people. He let his family just remain in poverty. And he basically lived off of his friend Engels, who was successful in life and did just very well for himself. So these two, they wrote the Communist Manifesto. They obviously both wrote a lot about economics and politics and philosophy. Engels wrote about social murder, which is what these three women are talking about. Again, they are morons, but let me explain to you what they mean. Social murder is the idea, typically it's an anti-capitalist term, that it's used to say that early deaths that could have been preventable are a form of social murder when the people in charge allow them to happen. So, Brian Thompson, he could have just approved everyone's claim and everyone gets free health care and everyone did this. And because Brian Thompson runs a healthcare company, and sometimes healthcare companies don't approve claims, or you have to do different treatment, or you do all these different things. Because of that, and some people die because they lack health insurance. Because of these things, Brian Thompson's responsible for all the deaths of all those people in the system. He's responsible for social murder. He's a mass murderer, so it's justifiable to kill him. Do you see how this is ridiculous and wrong in any way? If you don't, let me explain. You do not get to commit violence against people who are not committing violence. Social murder is a nonsense term. It's like when the left says words are violence. Words are not violence. Words are words. Words are words. Social murder is not violence. It's not murder. Murder means something. Social murder is a term that is used to justify the killings of people. It's just the way that words of violence are used to commit violence against people who are being nonviolent. Brian Thompson was not a violent person. Brian Thompson did nothing wrong. Brian Thompson did not deserve to die on the streets from some coward who shoots him in the back. But all of these things are justified when you say, well, he's a murderer. Brian Thompson's a murderer. He's committed social murder because he involves a system that everyone doesn't live forever. You understand that the healthcare system in America has problems, but the health coverage, people don't understand this. Health outcomes in America are better than anywhere in the world, period, full stop, end of story. We have the best healthcare system in the world. Hold on, I hear you. Our system is not perfect. There are a lot of things that we should change. If we had to redo it from the ground up, I would create a different system. But our actual healthcare you get in America is better than in other countries. I know you're upset about this. Our survival rates for serious diseases, such as cancer and operations that people have, like serious cases, way better than other countries. Our survival rates, our 5-year survival rates of cancer are better than anywhere on the planet. They just are. We know how to treat people better in America. We have the best doctors in the world who live in this country, who work in this country. So when people are talking about the American health system being flawed, they're saying it's expensive. Okay, yeah, it's also the best. That's just a fact. It's not a disputable fact. It is a fact. We have the best medical schools in the world, in America. They educate doctors here in America. The number one school in the world is located right here in St. Louis. The Washington School of Medicine is like the number one best medical school in the world. It happens to be attached to Barnes Hospital here in St. Louis, which is the best cancer hospital in the world. So it's crazy that people don't understand this. And so it's expensive. But the fact that Brian Thompson's part of the system, everyone's part of the system. Brian Thompson's at the top of the health insurance system. Social murder doesn't mean that we get to kill him. But that's what these women are saying. You understand? That's what this is. They're saying, fuck Brian Thompson. I'm glad he's dead. It was a good thing. This is terrible. We don't understand violence versus nonviolence. These women, these absolute shrews, these terrible, awful human beings, these know-nothing losers who are out there, that woman looked 35 years old wearing a green and black striped shirt with her self-cut bangs. These absolute cretins, they don't understand violence. They don't understand it because I will promise you, if they did, they wouldn't be for it. I know what violence looks like. I've seen it. You don't want to have anything to do with it. It's not a good thing. But they don't understand that because these are the low intellect, mouth breathing, vile swamp creatures who they don't understand anything, but they say it with such confidence. That one, I'm sorry. I'm just name calling at this point. They don't get that murder is bad. This is as easy as it comes. We're talking sixth commandment here. You know, God hands down a bunch of rules. He says, hey, don't kill people. That seems like an easy one to follow. You don't get to kill people because you don't like them or they're doing something you don't like. Brian Thompson was responsible for no one's death. No one. He didn't kill a single person. None of the people who died who happened to be covered by United, or I think it's United, by his health insurance company, none of the people who died are his fault. No, he didn't make anyone sick. He didn't refuse claims based on the fact that he wanted someone to die. He runs a business. That's the way it works in America. It's a business. You don't like the capitalist system? Oh, great. Get out. Go somewhere else. Go start a commune in some island somewhere. Just leave. But you don't get to sit there and be a good person. I think that these people, I mean this in a literal sense, should be ostracized from society. You can't deport American citizens. I'd deport them and go to Antarctica. I would get rid of them. Like, social ostracization is a tool that should be used instead. You see this person, you don't treat them with respect. You don't say, oh, all right, this is a person worth having a dialogue with. You say, I really want nothing to do with you. And then you don't talk to them. These people, they shouldn't be able to go to a dinner party in New York and be treated nicely. You go, oh, you're that woman? I'm going to go over here. I don't really want to talk to you. That's it. You don't have to be overly rude. You don't have to confront them. Get up in their face, as Maxine Waters said. You don't have to do that. But we shouldn't associate with people like this because we're not talking about politics. We're not talking about, well, I think taxes should be lower, and you think taxes should be higher, and you think that we should have universal health care, and I think that we shouldn't. Our single-payer system would be bad. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about here is you think it's okay to murder people, and I don't. That's not a conversation I'm willing to have with somebody. I'm not willing to say, oh, well, we just disagree. No. It's not a disagreement. We're not, because that is the baseline level. That violence is not okay has to be agreed upon. Otherwise, you're not a person worth talking to. And that goes for anyone. Anyone who says, yeah, violence is sometimes acceptable. No, it's not. Violence in self-defense is acceptable. If somebody is actively trying to kill me, violence, plotted out, cold-blooded assassination, no. Punching somebody in the face for speaking, no. We don't do these things. Somebody has to have a knife or a gun and come at me. That's the only time that I'm willing to commit violence against the person is when they are a threat, an imminent, immediate threat to my safetyhood or the safetyhood of other people. That's it. That's it. The safety of my safety, the safety of people around me, that is the only time. But they don't understand this. They don't get it because, again, They are low information, low IQ people. They are absolute witches. Makes me angry. It really does. It makes me angry because you can see the mainstreaming of this in politics right now today, where people, they hear someone like Hassan Piker, who uses the same term, who talked about the idea of social murder. That guy's popular on the left. These women, they're not a fringe anymore. These are getting more and more popular. This is the mainstream of the Democratic Party. They don't recognize this. They want to play footsie with these people. They want to put Hassan Piker in the New York Times and say, guys, he's just a little spunky. Give him a chance. He's a great guy. No, he's not. He's a terrible person. And anyone who talks to him and wants to normalize him is doing a bad thing because he calls for violence. That is it. That's my baseline. People I won't talk to. I'll talk to anyone. I'm willing to have a conversation. I'm happy to have a conversation with any single person about any topic at any given moment. I love it. I love talking to people. I love debating. That's great. We can all disagree and we can still be friends. This is the baseline. This is the level. If you call for violence against your political opponents, you're not a person worth talking to. That's my Overton window. That's what I'm talking about. That's where I draw the line of acceptable and unacceptable ideas. And these women, I wouldn't even have a conversation with them. I'm not interested. I'm not going to have a debate. I'm not going to do all these things because I think they're bad. I think they're stupid. I think they're evil. They want to kill me. Okay, we're not having that debate. I'm not going to try and explain to you why it's inappropriate for you to say such moronic things. It reminds me of that political cartoon, that really famous cartoon where you have Israel saying, we want peace, and the Palestinians saying death to all the Jews. And then I think it was John Kerry. John Kerry's in the middle talking to Israel and says, well, can you meet him halfway? It's like, no, I'm not going to meet you halfway. You want to kill me? I'm not interested in playing a game with you. We're not going to do that. Anyway, we're going to leave it there for the week because I'm just getting all agitated over here, just getting all riled up. As always, questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. And if you have a comment and the comment is great, we'll read it on the show next week. And until then, hope you guys have a lovely week, and I will catch you next Friday.